Welcome to the Performance Enhancing Podcast. It's like steroids for your brain. A podcast for people looking to live life at their peak potential. Chock full of real-world tools and knowledge that you can apply in your life today. By providing you with a lens into the lives, beliefs, practices, and actions of those who are already living extraordinary lives, the Performance Enhancing Podcast will help you shift your mindset or create that change in your daily rituals and habits so you can explode with success in the areas of life that are most important to you. So get ready for another dose of Performance Enhancing Podcast with SatoriPrime. Here's your host, Ilan Ferdman.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another Performance Enhancing Podcast with your host, Ilan Ferdman. And this is going to be Happy Corner Part 2. So if you missed Part 1, we covered a lot about your core values, which is a very interesting conversation that's actually going to thread its way back into today's part. And today what we're actually going to focus on is kind of through that values process, how to find your true purpose, a great distinction of work, career, or calling, which was something that Stella brought up that I thought was really, really interesting and can give you an insight into where you are at this point in your life. An incredible exercise that you can do in literally 20 minutes that will help you figure out how to have the life of your dreams. It's really that powerful. We speak a lot about balance, life balance, and the distinction that a lot of people have where they compartmentalize their life. So we kind of break that down. And then finally, we discuss an interesting topic between resigned and surrender. So without further ado, here's part 2 of Happy Corner with myself, my brother, and Stella Grizont. Bro, you want to take us on a different path here?
Here's the thing: as she was saying it, I realized that it's not different at all. Like we're actually talking about the same exact thing, and that's why I'm like, okay, do we even want to go down this path? Because we're about to reiterate a lot of what we said. Because the moment it hit me was when you said I seek balance, and if I was to prioritize, what I seek, number one for me is balance, without a doubt. Because when I look at my life and I feel balance, and for me it really is just a feeling. I don't necessarily need to see balance. My life just aligns. I'm more in love. I'm more productive. I'm happier. So for me, it's been a critical thing a lot. And as a person who grew up with a lot of anger and lack of patience and stuff like that, that's stuff why I don't like it, or at least don't like it in quotes, is because it always feels like it throws me off balance so far, and I have to then get responsible for and deal with the backlash of what my anger or my impatience has caused. And that's always like, okay, now there's even more work. Now more unbalanced. That's got to bring me back. So for me, I mean, just same exact conversation, just different context is I started this year feeling really, really strong and did with a lot of certainty and a lot of assurance in where we were going as a company, as I was doing personally, and the role that I wanted to play, how that was going to look. And like always, the universe is like, okay, right? It's like, so man plan, God laughs, that whole thing. And ironically, like I went to go, and I'm not, before I say this, I want to give context too, that I think ultimately in the longer run, there will be a lot of value to what I'm about to say. I went and did spiritual things that I had never done before, most of which deal with the subconscious mind. And that has set me off on a strange path this year, because a lot of stuff that was old that you put away in the back closet and tell yourself that's done, that's just going to stay in there for a while. When you start doing subconscious work, it tends to come out of the closet and say, hi, remember me? I'm back again. And a lot of that old emotional stuff came back, and that's again just jarring because you're thinking to yourself, didn't I do this already? Didn't I deal with this crap already? And it's like here again, like, blowing its little horn and waving its little flag in your face. And it's been a little bit more of a roller coaster year for me emotionally than it has been in the past. And I haven't been able to seem to be able to find balance as quickly as I have in the past. But I guess that's the risk you take when you're dealing with subconscious training, right? So like I said, I still believe, and I have a knowing inside of me that in the long run, this is just a reprocessing of things that I may have processed consciously, again, that are coming up again, that just need to kind of find a new home or need to find a new context. And I'm okay with that. So I don't really have a question, I guess, but part of what went along with that is it messed with my purpose. And what sucks about that for me, at least, with, again, in quotes, what sucks about that for me is that for the last 4 years, I've been very clear on purpose and very clear on what I wanted to do and very aligned. Like the things we were doing were very aligned with my vision. So I'm like, where's my purpose? Like what happened to that thing? Because right now I feel like I'm like purpose isn't what's driving me. I'm just like doing it, I'm efforting versus purpose. And you can feel the difference when you're doing one and the other. So we were engaging in conversation this morning of like, what's my purpose right now? How do I repurpose so that I'm working from that place and I'm not just working to like create an outcome that has to do with like our business? Because to me, honestly, that's not a big enough driver. That bores the crap out of me, and it puts me in scarcity mindset. It puts me in an alarmist mindset. It makes me fearful of things that I'm not afraid of at all when I'm purpose driven. So the question, I guess, sorry, because I'm going all over the place, but the question, I guess, and this is something we deal with a lot with our students. I kind of think I know where Ilan would take it, so I'm a little bit more curious where you would go with it, Stella. If somebody comes to you and says, "Man, like I want to find my purpose. I really do." And the conundrum, I think, always with answering that question is to not get people in the mind frame of what do you need to do to find purpose? Because my experience in finding purpose has never been having anything to do with you need to do something to find purpose. It just kind of like comes to you in some kind of state of action. I guess I don't know if that even makes sense. So I know a lot of our students, like they see an opening for it, but then they don't know what that looks like because most people have never lived from purpose at all. So what kind of coaching, if any, when people come to you and say, "Hey, I really want to find what my life's about," where do you kind of point to? What do you look for?
Well, I think purpose is a really tricky area because we all want to have like a statement that captures it so well and there it is and it doesn't change. But sometimes when you're feeling so lost and purposeless, what I try to help people recognize is that well, if we think about meaning, it's really about having a sense of significance. When we want to be on purpose, we want to feel significant in some way, right?
Yep.
And usually that sense of significance comes from serving something bigger than ourselves, which usually involves other people, but it can involve the planet. It can involve a cause of some sort. But it doesn't always have to be so big and high and mighty. Like it could be growing a beautiful garden and providing beauty for your neighborhood. It could be sending a quote of the day around the office to inspire people. So when people ask me about purpose, what I usually do, the first thing I do is I help people develop a vision of themselves and where they want to be. Because sometimes when you ask the question straight on, it's hard to get to because our mind gets in the way. So I'll have people loosen up, and we do that in different ways depending on the person. I'll also have them drink a glass of wine if necessary.
I was about to say, you can find a lot of purpose, just got to have a drink.
And then we do some vision work, and then we do I start to prod because then that gives me insights. Okay, what's most important? And then I pay attention to where things flow and where there's like a God-given kind of gift or talent because usually purpose is very well tied to our strengths that are, and by strengths, I mean, what are our God-given gifts that we can continue to refine, but are almost like effortless. And often people take for granted what those are because they come so easily. And so, for example, I have a client who's a customer experience strategist, and she works with very large, like, financial organizations. And her kind of like a lot of people can do, quote unquote, what she does, but why she does it so well is because she's able to hear different teams and their different needs and have them collaborate in a way that really puts the customer first. But really what she's doing is she's listening really, really well. She's kind of like this detective. And but she does that so well that she doesn't acknowledge that that is important or useful or valuable because it just comes so easily. So often what we have when it comes to purpose, it often is something that we take for granted. And I find a lot of people take it for granted or judge it as not enough or not good enough. So I start to listen for people's strengths. I start to listen for where do you get energized in what you're doing? Like, maybe you get energized making people laugh or bringing lightness to a situation. Or maybe you get energized when you put things in order. So there's all sorts of ways. You kind of have to, it's like you have to put on your detective hat and look for the clues. And that's why it's good to work with like a coach like you guys, because we can help people hear themselves and see themselves. Yeah. But the other thing I wanted to say about purpose is that, so I don't know if I shared this research with you by Amy Rozhensky from Yale, but she did some research on calling, like life calling. And what she found is that there's 3 ways to look at work. Okay. And one way is to look at work as just a job. So it pays the bills. Another way to look at work is a career. So it's about growing, having status, building a name for yourself, increasing the amount of money you make. The third way to look at work is a calling, and that's the purpose-driven path. And what she said is that we can all take any kind of job, even the most, like let's say a hospital janitor who's basically cleaning up poop or blood or all sorts of things. That person can see their work in a purposeful way or in a job way or in a career way. Like it could be just paying the bills. It could be, I'm going to run this whole department, facilities department one day. Or it could be like, hey, what I do every day, cleaning up this shit and this blood and all this nastiness actually makes healing for these patients easier. It makes meeting family under kind of difficult circumstances that much more fluid. And so that person begins to see the purpose in their role. Maybe they don't see their life purpose in that way, but they do identify a purpose in what they're doing. So I guess there's the big purpose with a capital P, but there's all sorts of like, we can find purpose, we can create purpose if we don't know what that capital P is yet. And sometimes that helps. So I don't know if that's supportive.
I mean, look, it's different. Yeah, everything is supportive. You know, any viewpoint is supportive. I think there's different perspectives and everything. I remember being younger. Not that I'm old now, but I remember being younger and thinking to myself, like, "Ooh, I would watch people who were like really into sports or were talented singers or musicians, and think to myself, man, they're so lucky. They know what they want to do. They're so driven. That's how they spend their time." And I was like, if I would just find that, I knew that I would be an absolute menace in terms of my ability to create results. And honestly, it was a lot like that. It just took me till I was about 27 to find anything that really lit a fire under my ass that way. But I really like what you said about listening for, right? I think Ilan and I have a similar thing we learned from Landmark, like listen for possibility. Listen for what's possible for people. And it's weird because what always fascinates me is as a coach and trainer, if somebody came to me, I would know exactly what's going on. And then when it comes to ourselves, it's like, put the fucking blinders on. Doesn't matter how much training you get.
Yeah.
It becomes as difficult a condition to deal with, or, you know, whatever you want to call it, condition or issue or whatever to deal with as it is for somebody who's coming to get coaching. You just don't know. And it could just be like, I emotionally don't feel well right now, so I'm not linked to my purpose. or which is part of it, if I was being 100% honest. And and it's right there anyway. I just have to get emotionally well again. Or is it time to really go back and look at what my values are and just see that what they were 4 years ago is not what they are right now, and I'm taking the same actions consistent with the value system I had before that's no longer in existence, or has reprioritized, and I'm not just finding the same satisfaction. Because look, when that started, I was 27 years old. What was next for me as far as kids, marriage, etc., was not that important to me. I can't say that it's gone up the list significantly, but as I've gotten older, it's something that I need to take more into consideration, because there's a time aspect to all these things also, right? Moving away from family 2.5 years ago was something that was wonderful, and today it's still wonderful, but at the same time, there's something you get from having family around that when you're away from family for a long period of time starts disappearing also, which is gets a little scary too. So there's a lot of little things that jab you or create little cuts on the body that you don't notice, but suddenly you're like, holy shit, am I bleeding out? And how do we stop the bleeding? So I'm not saying I'm in red alert mode by any stretch of this. It sounds like I'm on my last breath over here. I need to go to a hospital immediately. But I'm just trying to give analogies for just little things that have come along the way that they seem so little, but when you're not managing them or you're not really looking, they fester and they grow. And my concern is right now that I'm going to let stuff that seems pretty minute grow into significantly bigger problems unless I really start looking at maybe redistinguishing what my values are. And I really like that part of it, getting going with that.
So let me ask you this. If someone said to you what you said to us, and you were to coach them on where to look or kind of leave this conversation with something, because look, I have a feeling that there's people that are listening right now that are I know that there are people listening right now that are exactly where you are.
Yeah.
So what would you share with them as a, I don't want to say plan of action, but where would you tell them to look, and what would you tell them to take as a daily routine or daily habit to start moving the needle back in a different direction?
Yeah, I think where I would go with somebody is I would find out what their day looks like. What are you doing right now? And not because I'm interested in what they're doing. I want to know what the emotional feedback is from what they're doing. So who are they being about what they're doing is more important to me than what they're doing. Where's the pleasure and where's not? So where's the pain and where's the pleasure in what you're doing? And get them really, really present to both. Okay. What's the impact on you? How's it impacting your life? That kind of stuff. And then just look at it from there. And then I wouldn't tell them to stop taking action. I would just now the next part for me would be, okay, so what are you present to while all that's going on? And if what they're present to is just the shit part of it, what's not working, I would have them refocus and look for the possibility in it, right? So when it's there, because ultimately there's no one right action you could tell anyone to take to go find purpose. It doesn't work that way. But if you're not taking any action at all, purpose won't find you either. So you got to keep move yourself at least definitively in some kind of direction, so that there's some kind of an unveiling happening about what's the action to take inside of my purpose. So just sitting there kind of like you said with love, waiting for someone to fall into your lap when you're just sitting at home in front of a computer, that's just not a realistic thing. Same thing with purpose. If you're not taking any action, it's not just going to fall in your lap and you're going to have a eureka moment. Oh, there's purpose. You won't even know what it looks like when it hits. So that's the kind of stuff I would look at and just see, because for me today, it's again, we're going back to balance, emotional balance. I used to think about that last, how do I feel about it? Now I think about it first, because I realize whatever I feel about it, everything is consistent with that emotion. What's going to come out of my mouth is consistent with how I feel. The actions I'm going to take that day are consistent with how I feel. So I'm looking for the emotional feedback, and then how to perhaps release the negative through meditation, breath work, and stuff like that. Or plant medicines, et cetera, whatever you can get, whatever works. And then once that feeling is out, how to give an empowering context and program something back in that starts giving you a positive feeling around what you're doing so you can start taking action again. I think that's how I would approach it.
Yeah. I mean, I actually want to bring back what Stella said in the beginning, which is the values. I think if someone just did a check-in for a week or two based on the value system that they think they have in place and just checking in and what you actually fulfilled to have that value be in existence, I think you'd very quickly realize where you're aligned.
Yeah.
What you're aligned with. Actions, that stupid cliche, actions speak louder than words. The line just escapes me. Guy, you can probably correct me. Paul, about results. If you want to know what results you're...
Oh, yeah. I mean, what he said, if you want to know results, look at your intentions.
No, if you want to know what you're committed to, look at your results.
If you want to know what you're committed to, yeah, absolutely.
If you want to know what you're committed to, look at your results, because at the end of the day, you can bullshit your way, we're humans. That's what we're amazing at, is lying to ourselves and justifying everything and all that kind of crap. But the reality of it is what you're actually committed to. And so it's a jarring thing to sometimes ask yourself, because you'll talk to people and they'll be like, I'm committed to finding the one. And you're like, well, what results have you produced? And they're like, none. And they're like, well, that's what you're committed to.
Yeah.
Right. And to say that to someone who thinks in their head and is justified that they really are, that's like, what are you doing? Why are you saying that? You don't even know me. But then you can have a conversation. You can kind of like dig through and wad through the bullshit to actually see what's underlying the whole thing.
Sure. If you have the ears for it, absolutely.
Say it again.
If you have the ears for it, absolutely.
Yeah. And again, it's not to make yourself bad or wrong, and it's not to beat yourself up or make you feel like shit. It's just, in order to move anywhere, you have to deal with what's so now. Like, people come to us and they say, I want to make $10,000 a month. And I'm like, great, love the goal. Where are you at now? 0. Okay, no problem. How much time do we have to get there, and how much money are you looking to spend? I want to do this in the next 3 months and I have $100 a month to spend. I'm like, are you fucking high? Like, if you can figure out how to do that, please teach me. Because again, we look out there to see all these people doing all these amazing things, and you just assume that, if I just look like them or do what I think they're doing. Meanwhile, there's this whole iceberg under the ground of all this shit that you can't even see that's really moving the whole machine.
Yeah.
And I think you gotta understand the platform you are walking off of and then just take that next step. So in the beginning, right? Like putting on mascara, that's a step. Because where she was, for Stella to say, I'm here now, I gained 55 pounds during birth, I'm X amount of pounds overweight, I want to be back to my pre-birth weight in 30 days. That's just ridiculous. Like, emotionally ridiculous. Even if she could do it physically, ridiculous, like horrible for the body. There's just I've heard this on the podcast said before, the longer your vision of success, the more successful you'll be. And I think get yourself to where you are now, the good and the bad, right? A lot of times getting the bad, I think, out of your head. And we always recommend doing this exercise where you just write down, like you take 2 sides of the paper and you just write all the things that you want to happen in your life. Like, I will be this, I will have that. You're kind of like dream list. Mm-hmm. And then in that state, now on the other side, you start writing all the reasons that came up why you can't have those things. Because that dream life to you will look at first so fake and so far-fetched. Mm-hmm. But what you're trying to really elicit is the reaction of just like, I can't have that.
Yeah.
I can't have that. And you start writing all these reasons why. And what's interesting is as you go like past half the page, the things that you start writing down will seem like a joke. Like someone else is feeding you bullshit answers about why you can't. And once you start realizing that all these things that are in your way are actually bullshit that you just made up, that's what you go to work on, and that's what you deal with. And that's what gives you the other side of the paper. That's what gives you that life.
I love that.
So I just think, it's funny how we always start conversations and they always come back
full
to
circle.
Yeah. And so I hope that what people kind of took away from today's call or podcast is that everything is everything. There's no wait and then business and then purpose and then love. It is all one thing, all of it. And that's why balance, I think, is so important, because you can't just work on one. You're always working on life. Every single one of us is just working on life. And give yourself room. Never compare yourself to others. I'm just trying to recap some of the things we said.
Yeah.
To be a better version of you than you were the day before. And I think you'll do just fine.
Real quick, it's funny because when people say I want to work on my relationship, they usually mean the love relationship, but everything is a relationship. Your relationship to your job, your relationship to your career, your parents, your siblings, etc. And you said, it's just life, just work on life. But I have come to the realization that life is a relationship. You have a relationship to life, right? And there's things that make relationships work, and there's things that make relationships not work, like communication, which includes listening. A lot of people just separate those two. They're kind of one and the same. I have to work on the latter big time. And same thing for me. The only thing I could tell you guys is I'm having this conversation, and when I'm talking about it, sometimes it makes me feel some negative emotions, but I could tell you I'm also not making myself wrong for where I am. And sometimes I'm a little bit caught on that one too, which is funny now to me, because the older I get, I found the juice in life is definitely in the unknown, right? Live in the mystery. It's an old line from What the Bleep Do We Know, way back when. But I think as I get older, what I'm starting to sense, and what sometimes causes me a little bit of concern, and we could maybe close it out on this thing, is that I sometimes don't know if I'm okay with the way things are in an empowering way. I will let it come to me. And some other times I mistake it for apathy and being resigned that it won't change, instead of surrender and acceptance, right? Which is the empowered version of resigned and apathetic. And I don't know why, as I get older, I'm concerned that there's more resignation and apathy than there is surrender and acceptance. Just because, again, when you think about time, and that it keeps moving, and we keep getting older, and that you're running out of it, or at least it seems that way, that I'm mistaking one for the other. And I don't know if there's a question in there, but that's one of the things that's been sitting in my head for a while.
Well, one sounds judgmental. And yeah, I guess I think it goes back to, and I don't know, I've just been using this values framework a lot lately. So I just maybe your values have shifted. Your purpose is still true, but how you go about achieving that purpose has changed. So, for example, our values are the principles that guide our actions, and they're the how we go about realizing that purpose, realizing that life that we want to live. And maybe you just, the how of how you go about achieving things is different. Maybe that's changing for you. For example, my husband, who's an extreme extrovert, really we can't walk 10 blocks without him interacting with the man standing outside and selling bagels or something like that. And he used to have he still has a very large group of friends, but I think that how he chooses to go about socializing has really, really changed. And that was fundamental to his identity, is his friendships and his connections with people, and is laddered up to something bigger for him. But yeah, it's not that he's lazy when he chooses not to go out, maybe with a group of people or something, but I think he's just like, it doesn't matter for me in the same way. Or it sounds like you're just refining and being more discerning about certain things. And then you're like, wait, is that really, that's not like the old me that used to do things this way. And am I okay with that? Does that make sense?
Totally. Look, yeah. I'm dealing, as far as I could tell, at least from what I'm taking away from this conversation, is I'm dealing with a breakdown in certainty. You know, like I had at least what appeared to me as a lot of certainty around what certain things would look like, and it's not that way. And it's funny because in my life experiences that it's almost never the way that you think that it will be. So yeah, again, you know, part of being balanced is you have this like reassuring feeling, but like I'll tell you at the deepest part of me, like in my intuitive part, if I take away the mind chatter and the logic that's kicking in, there's this deep knowing that everything's fine, and that like I'll find it, and then I'll repurpose, and that I'll still be able to serve and stuff like that. And on top of all that, my biggest concern is when I'm like this, that I can't serve the way that I know that I can, or be available to, or help the world in the way that I think that I'm capable of. Yeah. And I think that there's a lot of that kind of stuff.
So I want to share with you something that I actually learned from Stella before I ever met her. For those that don't remember from the first Happy Corner, I actually heard Stella on Dave Asprey's podcast and immediately went home and reached out to Stella and was like, will you please be on our podcast? And she said yes. And I remember sending Guy an email to be like, she said yes. She said yes. So, and here we are. But one of the things that she had said, and Dave was talking about how to get out of a funk, like when you feel really shitty. And Stella made two amazing points, which I'm going to paraphrase a little bit because there's a kind of a step process, but two that I want to share with Guy is, one, she made it very clear that nothing happens from feeling like absolute dog shit to feeling elated. Like you can't go from 1 to 2, like 10 in a blink of a finger. It's a process. And the one thing that she said will get you out of feeling shitty about yourself or in a bad mood is go help someone. No matter how crappy you feel, no matter what's going on, find someone to help.
Totally.
Find someone that wants you to be listened to. Find someone that needs anything. She goes, that is the fastest way to get from feeling crap to good. And I know for Guy, that's like the motto that you need to live by, because whenever your world, the focus goes in here and about you, that's when you're at your worst. Not like, you know what I mean? Not like worse, but that's the worst focus for you. When your focus is on others, your life sings. It just hums. You are put on this earth to be of service for others. When you are not of service for others is when I actually see you go into these kind of investigatory moods and you just start peeling stuff away. And the truth of the matter is, as soon as you go back into that mode, you become your greatest self, and all this other shit just works itself out.
Yeah, absolutely. And I definitely know that's a source of balance for me and a lot of happiness. Yeah. And I think a big part of the question is am I doing in service what I still want to, what I want to be doing in service, which is, I will say, a lot of the source of where this is coming from is that do I still want the same picture that I wanted 4 years ago that now I feel I have? And I think part of it is I know that I can be doing a lot more, and not necessarily doing, but like on a bigger scale somehow that I feel that I'm not serving, which really sourced a lot of this stuff too. Start with, and just dealing with that now. Like, what is that going to look like? So great stuff, guys. I mean, Yeah. Great stuff. I couldn't agree
Stella,
more.
did I do a pretty good job paraphrasing?
I love that. I love that you remembered it. I was like, what did I say? I don't even remember. So thank you.
I
Yeah,
love
that actually was, yeah, that's really awesome. I totally agree. And yeah, so it sounds like to me you're exploring now again, Guy, and like, yeah, maybe you test out when you are being different qualities of being of service and see where you get a zing. Yeah.
Trying to find out. I'm thinking of Vipassana in September just to scare the crap out of myself.
If you haven't noticed, we are experienced junkies.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. So I think we closed out with that. Yeah.
Final thoughts.
Ladies first.
All right. Know what your values are. Really take time to ask yourself, what is important to me? And check in with yourself every day on what small steps you're taking towards the things that are most important to you. And they can be really baby steps. And action doesn't always look like doing. Action can also be being. So when we talk about doing an action, I think we're also saying, like, how are you embodying this experience? Or it doesn't, I mean, taking time to be still can be doing. So action can look like a lot of different things.
Brilliant. Me?
Yeah.
My takeaway actually would just hit me now is, well, two things. Number one, I have intention that by the next Happy Corner, I have some more clarity. And that doesn't mean necessarily I know exactly what's going on, but just whatever seems fuzzy has a little bit more focus right now. Another thing I realized is I've been thinking so big scale that I forgot to look at the micro, like day to day, just like walking out on the street, service to people. So just raising awareness around day-to-day interactions, going to the gym, smiling at people, your basic hello, just human decency stuff that we talk about but often overlook. Because I think when you're focused so much on the big picture, you sometimes forget that stuff. So I'm kind of in this like, all right, well, let's just go back to basics and then plant some seeds there and then see what grows up instead of trying to find a big fucking plant in the middle of a jungle. So that's kind of what hit me right now.
Very nice. Couple of things that hit me and I'm actually taking on is I have dabbled back and forth with journaling, but I really like this value system idea and writing that question, which I have, how did I live my value of X? And I'm going to find 4 or 5 and really just keep track just to see what's actually occurring in my life. And then the other thing, which Stella just kind of said in passing, I don't even think she noticed it, but you said something like when I'm with Lenore to actually be present and not just be there texting and stuff. I actually find that I'm so obsessed with multitasking and not even multitasking, but using every minute for the maximum of what that minute has. And so like my kids will be in the playroom, and if I know that I could be with them and listening to a podcast, then I do both. And I was just like, that's kind of retarded. So I'm going to quit that. And
wow, awesome.
Yeah, I'm going to try to implement the no phone kids time.
Oh,
see how that
that's
works.
big.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that just occurred to me. I mean, I knew of it, but like
awesome.
Whatever, it somehow dropped differently this time. And that's it. You know, I probably say this all the time, but I absolutely love these happy corners just because
Ditto.
There's something in the space where we give each other the right to be whoever we want, show up however we want. There's no right, there's no wrong, there's no judgment. There is no you need to show up on here perfect, which I think a lot of people, even like you said on the Facebook posts and stuff, we see all this way that people want to present themselves. And we all kind of, I think, hopefully know that it's not inauthentic, but it's just this freaking sliver of that person's life. And they are just as fucked up and just as angry and just as struggling as everyone else is. And yet you don't get to see that. So you have this perception that everyone's life is amazing and hunky-dory. And, you know, we all live incredible lives. And I'm talking to all of us, but three of us here, I know we all live incredible lives. And the willingness to come on here and share the real of it, I hope that to others gives them a sense of this is life. You know, it has its ups, it has its downs, and that is never going to end. It ends when you die. That's about it. And give yourself space, you know, just like that quote says, the good passes no matter how much you try to hold on to it, and the bad will disappear no matter how much you try to push it away. Eventually they all go. So with that, thank you for listening. Hope you pulled from this as much as we all did in talking to each other. And we'll see you on the next Performance Enhancing podcast, and soon another Happy Corner.
Thanks,
Bye, guys.
Thank you for joining us on this week's Performance Enhancing Podcast. We've taken this pep talk and created a custom action guide so you know exactly what action steps to take now to grow your business. Just head over to SatoriPrime.com/podcast and download it for free. Also, please leave a comment and rate this podcast on iTunes. It'll help us get the word out. Thanks for listening. Now, go and implement. We'll see you next time.